murders at the weekend, where 3 spectators lost their lives. It's brought the issue of safety in motorsports under the spotlight. Well, last month, 26-year-old Garry White, a vintage sports car enthusiast from Giffnock, died following an accident at the end of his race. He wasn't famous or in the public eye, but he was a local hero to many, and more than 800 people turned out to pay their respects. Well, in a moment, we'll be hearing from Garry's close friend, John Lomas, and his 6-year-old daughter, Natasha. But first, let's hear Garry's story.
Garry White was only 26 years old when he died 6 days after a crash at Silverstone Circuit. The vintage car enthusiast had dedicated his life to the sport, climbing to the top of the racing car circuit.
The day that he had his accident was the first time that he was first across the finishing line. So I think he was obviously just so excited and happy about, achieving that. I don't know what happened after that.
Vintage cars were Garry's passion. When he wasn't driving, he was tinkering with his own cars, a Riley TT Sprite Special and a Riley Lynx.
He had a passion for cars from a very, very young age. My husband has had a vintage car of some sort for over 30 years, and Garry obviously grew up with him. He was at his dad's side the whole time. Sometimes he didn't want to go to school. I had to take him to school kicking and screaming because he wanted to stay at home and help his dad work in the cars rather than go to school.
Garry's childhood passion blossomed as he grew, and he got a job as an engineer to fund his hobby.
I think he was probably about 18. He decided to build his own racing car, and that took him about 5 years to build.
Always very passionate, always really excited about cars. You would ask him what he wanted for his birthday or Christmas, and it was some car part or something related to cars, so you eventually gave up and just gave him the cash because that was easier. But yeah, very, very passionate. He worked to fund his car racing and to build his cars.
Last summer, he drove a group of friends round France in his beloved Riley Lynx and regularly drove hundreds of miles to attend races up and down the UK. More than 800 people attended Garry's funeral, and his family has received dozens of cards and letters from friends who knew and loved him. His death has been a huge blow to all the people he met and those in the vintage car racing community.
Last week, a letter from one of his friends to say that she just can't believe that it's happened and how sad and upset she feels, so she can't even imagine how we feel. And although it was our son, brother, whatever family member, it would appear that he's a favourite son, brother, cousin, nephew of hundreds of families all over the country.
One more big one.
Garry's story has inspired 6-year-old Natasha Lomas to raise money for brain injury charity Headway.
I think it's really quite inspirational for a 6-year-old girl to do this. A lot of my friends would turn around and say that it's really admirable that somebody would want to do that, to think of all those different things to do at such a young age. And she had a target of £26, and the fact that she's well truly at 5,000% achieved that, I don't think she quite understands the value attached to that, but I think that if Garry was here to understand it all, or to know about it, I think he would be absolutely overwhelmed with it, so it's just a really kind and thoughtful thing of her to do.
Well, Matty Sutton there with that report. Well, we're joined now by Natasha, who you saw in that piece. They are also joined by her father, John. You've travelled up all the way from Manchester today to be with us, so thank you so much, first of all. John, you know Garry through the vintage sports car community. What was he like? Why was he so special?
I think really he burst onto the scene in my life in 2007 and was just such a bundle of enthusiasm and joy and a really good laugh and a very good friend, and it's just quite tragic to hear what happened, and he's just a very, very enjoyable person to be with, and a lot of time with me and my family, and just a great guy.
Racing sounds like a lot of fun, but there's obviously an element of danger. What exactly happened during Garry's race?
I think all the facts aren't exactly known, but by all accounts the car lost control and unfortunately turned over, and in vintage car racing you're not strapped in, you don't have rollover hoops, so the car landed on Garry, and then obviously the injuries were too severe, and unfortunately 6 days later he lost his battle and left everyone devastated.
John, what's been the reaction in the sports car community to Garry's day?
I think it's been one of, we all know motorsport is a dangerous sport, but it's been one of extreme sadness and just shock and disbelief. I was with a friend down in Kent last week who summed it up very much so. He got up at 3:30 in the morning to travel to Garry's funeral. People travel from around the world. You don't do that out of a feeling of just thinking, I need to be there. You do that because you genuinely are upset and love and care for somebody. So it's really been it's left a big hole in vintage car racing, I think, for the Vintage Sports Car Club.
Now, Natasha, you've been a very, very busy girl, haven't you? Tell me about some of the things that you've been getting up to for Garry.
I've been doing swimming, trampolining.
I heard you were making cakes as well. Are you making cakes?
Yeah, I was making cakes.
And you were saying that you were going swimming. Did you go swimming 26 times? Is that right?
Yeah, across the pool.
26 times is a lot, Dad, right? And also trampolining 26 times as well? Is that 26 bounces on the trampoline?
26 bounces. I think there was a few extra. My counting skills weren't the best, so there might have been a few more than 26. But everything was themed around 26 being the age that Garry passed away.
And Dad and Natasha, why did you decide to do this? Why was it so important to do something?
I think really because Garry had made a big impact on Natasha's life, even though he'd only met her in her memory 3 times, but more times before that. But he was a big guy, and on the way to the funeral, I was dropping Natasha off at my parents', and she saw a neighbour running and said, "Oh, he must be doing that for charity. I'll do something for charity for Garry." And we came up with a few ideas. I started with a sponsored silence, but was told that wouldn't be much fun. So then we came up with different things, and as the total got bigger and bigger, we decided to add 3 things to the 6 she was already doing. So just quite a staggering outpouring of people giving money with a target of £26, and we finished up with just short of 2,500. So it's quite staggering, really.
So you must be very proud of Natasha.
Very much so, yeah. She's a caring little soul, but this is with a bit of direction, but all of this is from her, really. So it's quite outstanding. Very proud.
So Natasha, what's left then? It seems like you've been up to everything: swimming, trampolining, baking. What's left?
I've got skipping.
Great.
I've got eating a donut without licking my lip.
Now that sounds like a good challenge, Dad.
Yes, not 26 times though, it's only once, but it's Harry and Tilly, one of our friends, have come up with that challenge, and we've tried it twice already, and it's nigh on impossible, so that could be a difficult one.
The hardest one. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Natasha and John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now we'd like to tell you a bit about our